Welcome everybody to another great episode of the Xancast. This one is not ASMR. I can finally talk and not have to whisper. It is great. It is grand. Man. Wow. Well, this episode is a very, apparently it's a personal one for a lot of people because, if you are a wrestling fan and all, and yeah, I've not talked about wrestling in a podcast for ages. Well, I talked about Edge's return. Yeah, Edge's return was, that was great. That was great. And the Orton thing attacking him, that just made Orton look like the worst guy in the world. Let's just be clear right there. That is exactly what that has done. That is what that has set up. And that's what everybody has to know. But this podcast is AEW or NXT. Which one do I prefer and why? Now, I'm going to tell you this. This isn't a war, okay? The people who say that this is a war are really just fool themselves, because this is not a war, alright? These are two shows that are on at the same time, and the ratings always get compared because people want this to be a war, but it is not, alright? You are looking at two different things here. You're looking at a new startup company. Somebody wants an alternative. Of course it's going to do better in ratings because people don't want WWE. They want something new. They want something fresh, so they want this. And NXT has low ratings because it's developmental. However, in my personal opinion, NXT is better. Alright? Now, this is why this is called AEW or NXT, because I'm going to tell you what I like about each one. Alright? Now, let me start with, why overall I prefer NXT. NXT has, each of them have 3 divisions, right? Technically I think NXT has 4 because of the Cruiserweight division, but, so you got the tag team, the women's, and the men's division, alright? Now, I'm just going to tell you right off the bat, AEW has no mid-card title picture, and I think that immediately damaged them, right off the bat. Alright, now if you want to talk good mid-card title picture, you go to NXT. They have Keith Lee in it, they got Dominik Dijakovic in it right now, Damian Priest is floating around there. You got to make card title picture, right? You go to AEW, you don't have one. Okay, but again, that's not a division. That's still the men's division, but that is part of the men's division, and that is what AEW lacks. They lack a proper mid card, And honestly, a mid card's important. If you have 4 titles in a wrestling company, then you're good. Okay, that is what you need for success. You need to have those few things. And if you do not have those few things, then you're just really missing something. Now, if we look at NXT's women's division might be the best women's division in the world, alright? And nothing can really hold a candle to it, who you got Chelsea Green in there, you got Shayna Baszler, you got Rhea Ripley, you got Toni Storm on occasion, you got Candice LeRae, you got Bianca Belair, you got so many great names, and they've just proven time and time again why they're so good. And then you got the AEW women's division, and you have a champion who, she's a good wrestler and all, but she's like a kind of a part-timer like Lesnar. And then, you got Britt Baker, who was a babyface, and she wasn't too good at it. Then she's a heel, and she's pretty good as a heel. But I'm just saying, I think the lack of luster in the lackluster, women's division in AEW isn't any of the competitors' fault. It is AEW's fault because they don't know how to push the women's division the way the WWE does. And it's because WWE is learning from past mistakes, and AEW is just trying to pick up on something from nothing. And I think that is the key reason, why AEW won't be better than NXT, is because their women's division is bad. Is it getting better? Well, the Nightmare Collective has ended. And them ending, honestly, it kind of fixes the women's division just a bit. However, when you got a champion that, as of Riho, who is kind of a weak champion, and she's not. I mean, I don't go for believable champions, Like, this is wrestling, it doesn't have to be believable. Like, it's really easy to beat. It's really easy to be Rey Mysterio and beat Brock Lesnar, It doesn't have to be believable. You can use some trickery, and you can pull the win over them and get the championship. You don't need something to be believable in wrestling. I mean, if they got Awesome Kong to face Riho and Riho won again, it's believable. It's something I could see happening. Now, like, if I'm thinking of the women's title here. Now, this is going to be the biggest portion of the podcast, just me talking about the women's scene is because in AEW versus NXT, because AEW's women's division is bad. Like, I think you only have 2 women that I'd like to see hold the title. One of them is Chris Statlander, and I forgot the other one's name. The Japanese one that wears red. I'm going to have to look this up. It starts with an H, but I forget the name. But, yeah, that is really the problems. And there's also, I could talk about the men's division, too. Again, no mid-card title scene. Hikaru Shida, that's what I was talking about. And Bea Priestley is also part of the roster, but, like, she's never on. And, again, that is one of the problems. You have people that are never on the show. She's been on maybe twice. And you can talk about it in the men's division. Think about Jimmy Havoc. Jimmy Havoc has only been on one episode of Dynamite, and I think it was like the second one. Since then, he hasn't been on a single one. Now you have a guy that should be a absolute shoo-in for, a mid-card championship. And if you're going for a mid-card championship, there are 4 guys who I think one of them should get it, alright? 4 guys, here they are. Kenny. Now Kenny's a weird pick here, but Kenny hasn't proved himself in a long time. Pac, Jimmy Havoc, or Darby Allin. Those are my 4 guys. I'm like, well, you could give them to one of them. Now Kip Sabian would be another good choice. However, he hasn't really finished his Joey Janela thing, and they have this beef left. So if they're to put a mid-card title, it should either be Kenny, Pac, Darby Allin, or Jimmy Havoc. Like right now. Now there is going to be a Kenny and Pac match in a few weeks. What if they put the mid-card title in that match? That would be something, wouldn't it? It really, really would. Alright? Because, again, as I said, on the NXT side of things, they have a mid-card. They have an established mid-card. And all a mid-card does is prevent the people that are not in the main event from becoming unimportant. And that is something that's happened in AEW. There is a lot of unimportance. If you're not in the elite or the inner circle, that is what has really happened. Or Darby Allin. Darby Allin has somehow been able to make a name and not be able to fall greatly. I think that's been good because they have faith in him, and obviously they see him as a mid-card champion at one point or another, but they're just not capitalizing on that, which again really is what it is. Alright, now we're going to talk about tag teams. Now, AEW has some great tag teams. They got the Young Bucks, they got SCU, they got the Lucha Bros. They got the teams, man. They got the teams. But besides those three, they got Kenny Omega and Hangman and Adam Page as their tag team champions. Now, you look at NXT, they have a lot of great tag teams as well. But, I think both of them need more in the tag team department. Especially, I don't know. I'm not going to say especially AEW, but for the first 10 weeks Their tag team rules are all over the place, and then they finally got together. That made the show look bad. That made the show look really, really bad. And again, it's a lot of things each week that you just think, man, how these guys? I know they want to do their own thing or whatever, but everything they do just seems to make them look really, really bad. And that is not a good thing, to look really, really bad. You would figure they're like, okay, I wanna make this happen, or I wanna make this happen. I wanna do all these things, but I just cannot seem to pull it off for some reason. I mean, you gotta think. You gotta think about these things. Now, NXT, they have had consistent tag roles all the time. But again, everybody needs a little more work on teams, because there's a lot of lackluster teams. I mean, NXT got Undisputed Era, which, in my mind, is the best team in the world. Everybody says, oh, Young Bucks, or Lucha Bros, or something like that, but nah. I somehow forgot Pride and Powerful as an AEW tag team, but, you don't have to worry about that. I mean, yeah, you got the Jurassic Express, but they aren't even, they're not that important. And then you got the Dark Order, which, again, it's a cool dark team, and you could do something with it, but they just need a purpose, because they are a cult without a purpose. That is my gripe with them, and it's just, that's what has to be done. Now, yes, this is a podcast me being very negative over AEW. Now, I'm gonna be a little negative over NXT here. Shocker, because again, I think they're better. But I think that they sometimes utilize the wrong people at the wrong time. Now, obviously, we see Candice LeRae, who she has been their top star at several occasions. That the Io Shirai feud, speaking of Io Shirai, gonna get there in a minute, that was an opportunity to have her beat Io and become the big champion, because everybody was behind Candice LeRae in that moment, and then they just failed. They didn't give her the title, they kept it on Shayna. Now, Shayna could have still just been as dominant if she just would have dropped it to Candice. Now, I'm going to say the same thing about somebody that is far better than Candice. Io Shirai. I think I'd say the best women's wrestler in the world, and also terribly underutilized. I believe she has an injury right now, not too sure. But if you want to go about women's wrestlers and who is the best, you go Io Shirai, you go Asuka, then you go, I think I'd go about Sasha, then I'd go Charlotte. I mean, Sasha gets underutilized too, but we're not talking about main roster, we're talking about NXT and AEW. We're talking about that. Yeah, and now they have Rhea Ripley. And, if Rhea does not lose the championship at WrestleMania, then we're just going to have another Shayna Baszler in my mind, or maybe they have Charlotte win. But however you look at it, Io Shirai should get the championship in the next 6 months, and she should hold it for a long time. Because Io Shirai, since turning heel, has proven how good she is, and they're just not really giving her the opportunity. I mean, it would be such a huge loss to lose her and have her go back to Japan, which I heard a lot of rumors that might happen. It would be a big loss, and they just have to make sure that they don't let that happen. But yeah, they underutilize so many people like Io Shirai. Men's-wise, I was going to say that they underutilized Keith Lee, but they just gave him the championship, so I think they finally realized it. When they both signed Keith Lee and Riddle, they're like, okay, we got these two, which one's better? I think everybody's slowly starting to realize that Keith Lee is better than Matt Riddle, and that's what I thought all along anyway. And Matt Riddle looks like he could possibly become tag team champions with Pete Dunne. I'd like to see that happen. But, the Undisputed Era, I'd like to see them get their championships back. What I fear is going to happen is Undisputed Era is going to go to the main roster after WrestleMania. It seems like a setup for that to happen. And I don't think Ciampa's going to be leaving NXT anytime soon, you know. That's where he wants to be. He wants to be down there. He wants to do that because the limited schedule is better for him. But, you know, they're starting to do a little more shows than they used to, so I don't really know what my man Ciampa is going to be doing. You know, that's the real question of it all. But, like, Undisputed Era is going to go to the main roster, like, I have a feeling. It's going to be Undisputed Era and Shayna Baszler. And honestly, if that is to happen, you know, that'd be pretty great. If Undisputed Era on SmackDown have Rollins' stable that doesn't really make any sense on Raw, and then you got a whole entire thing going. Alright. Speaking of stables. Alright. There is a lot of them. There's a lot of them in AEW. And then you look at NXT, I think they just have Undisputed Era. I mean, yeah. Yeah. Because for a stable or faction, whichever you want to call it, it is 4 people or more. 3 people is a trio. They're not a faction. Now, they're not really commonly found in wrestling anymore. However, in AEW, there seems to be a lot of them. And now there's finally one on Raw. But, yeah. On NXT, of course, you got the Undisputed Era. And AEW, you have the Dark Order. You had the Nightmare Collective, but they're gone now. You have the Inner Circle. You have the Elite. You have a lot of them. I think having that many factions is just too much, you know. They really needed to like narrow down on these things because there is just too many of them. Everybody belonging in a group is just kind of weird. Now, this also happens in New Japan, which I think they might have drawn inspiration from because you got LIJ, you got the Bullet Club, you got Chaos. I might be forgetting one, I probably am, but you know, you got those. And the majority of the roster is under one of those in New Japan, so it's kind of weird, you know. And yeah, I'm a big fan of factions. I mean, look at Action Stars Wrestling. I think there's like, what is there right now? There's the Bullet Club. Is that it? Huh. Okay, yeah, it is. There's the Bullet Club. I used to have more factions. I had Empire, which was another big one, but now they're gone. Man, I only have one? Wow, okay. I can't think of another one, so I think I only have one. But, yeah. You know, factions, man, they're just everywhere. Okay. Now I'm going to talk a little more. About the fact that this should just not be a war. There isn't a war going on here. You know, they're not fighting for survival. They're just on. Alright? It's not like the 90s with WCW versus WWF. Nothing is at risk here. And honestly, Vince is unbothered by AEW. So I think that just really proves something right there. Now, yes, is AEW getting more, you know, people watching? Yes. Are they winning a war? No. There isn't a war. It's just what the fans have made up. Because back in the day, it was said that there is a war. It was said time and time again that there is a war. Alright? There is not one going on right now. Not at all. Alright? You know, maybe 5 years down the line, there will be a war. But there isn't. There isn't one. And that's just a fact. You know, you got NXT, you got AEW. Why not enjoy both? They are 2 wrestling shows. They're the 2 best wrestling shows. And they are on at the same time. But there's not a war. I don't know why people don't understand that there's not a war. There's nothing about it. And I'm sick of seeing all the people say going to put up the ratings of AEW doing better or NXT doing better when, again, there's not a war. If you prefer one over the other, that is great. But nothing is at stake here. Nothing is at stake here at all. And that is what people have to realize. There is not a war. Wars are when there's something at stake. That's just it. There's nothing at stake here. There isn't a war. And I think everybody knows that. Like, deep in their head. Well, some people don't, because some people are just stupid, but, again, there's not a war going on. When there's a war, there is something at stake. Neither one of these shows have anything to lose right now, because neither one of them are going anywhere. That is what it is. Just saying. Like, again, if you do believe there is a war, there just isn't, and there's nothing else to say about that, because there's not one. I could say it over and over and over again, there just isn't a war. But yeah, that's that. I have said my piece today. I've really said my opinions on how all the things go. I don't even know if I finished a full thought about the tag team division now that I think about it. I think both companies have to put some work in the tag team division. I'd say NXT just a little more, because who is going to be your guys to really take those championships from the Undisputed Era? I mean, it's kind of looking like Riddle and Dunn, but that's not a guarantee. And then maybe you put DIY back. Give DIY another championship, tag team championship. I'd love to see that personally. But, that's just not a thing that's going to happen. But again, if you want to look at the best... Well, I don't think I've said this. Never mind. No, but again. But if you want to look at the best wrestling show on the planet, it's called Etched in the Stars Wrestling. It has everything. It has everything I like about wrestling. It has everything I want. Because I make the show, obviously. But still, it has the greatest stuff. You gotta check out Etched in the Stars Wrestling. I mean, if I'm being honest, you kind of have to. You kind of have to, right? You came this far. But, yeah. Since this is possibly gonna be a very divisive video, and there's possibly gonna be riots in the comments, then, I'm gonna leave it here. I'm not gonna say anything else. Thank you for watching. Next week I'll have another sweet podcast. I'm going to tell you what it's about in 1 second. I just can get this notes app to load. Next week we were talking about aliens. Aliens. Do you believe in aliens? You better. Thanks for watching. See you then. Bye.